1 test. I've had a couple people ask me about it. So before we get started with things for today, you got back your Unit 1 test a while ago. If you are not here, then I probably have it over there, so just make sure you come see me, but I think I've passed them all out. So you are allowed to retake the unit test in algebra. Tests are retakeable, and whatever you score, whichever is highest is what stands. So ideally, you would do better on the retake, and that score is what goes into SIS. So let's go extreme. Say you get a 0% on the original test and 100% on the retake, then 100% is what goes on SIS. Now, of course, that would mean you'd have to learn everything that you didn't learn the first time, but ideally you would do better. So the process for retakes, and I'll just go ahead and show you here. So you will pick up a retake contract. I have a few printed off. If you need one, just come see me at the end of class and I'll grab one for you. But basically what you need to do is test corrections. That's my main requirement for you retakes. And so when you do test corrections, let me go to the process here. Corrections must be clearly numbered and complete on a separate sheet of paper. We'll redo the entire problem. So let's say you got number 1 wrong. You write number 1, redo the problem, and then circle your correct answer. Let's say you got number 10 wrong, and you do number 10, redo the problem, circle your correct answer. Now, once you have finished your corrections, then you actually have to come in and check it with the key. Because if you're still doing it wrong, then what's the point of retaking if you're still going to get it all wrong? So once you do your corrections, you come in and check it with the key and make sure that you did it correctly, and then fix any mistakes that you've made so you don't make those same mistakes on the test. So you have to have, by the time you turn them in to me for your retake, they need to be completely correct. If they're wrong, then you don't get a retake. You have to actually have correct answers, which there should be no problem since I'm giving you the key to check it with, and you can come ask me questions. So you'll come, you do your corrections, you come see me, check it with the key, fix anything you need to, and then you turn in your corrections once it's all correct. Now, you need to turn in your corrections, you need to check them long before the deadline, but turn them in the day before you retake. So normally our retake should be Thursday after school. You could also do during stingers if you have a stinger that works for you. You just have to check with me. For our first one here, you can either do this Thursday after school, so be tomorrow after school, or the following Thursday. That's kind of our last deadline. It needs to be taken by the following Thursday. So we're talking not this Thursday, but next Thursday. So either Thursday after school. And again, other time is approved by me. So that's, again, if you would rather come during a stinger to do it then, or if there's a different day after school that I'll be after and you'll be able to stay as well, you can do that as well. So again, if you want to retake, you'll grab this contract from me. Just see me at the end of class and I'll get one for you. And you'll do corrections on separate paper. You'll come check your corrections with the key, fix anything, ask me questions, and then just make sure that's turned in by the day before. So if you are taking the retake next Thursday, October 10th, you need to check your corrections sometimes between now and then make sure you turn in your correct corrections by the 9th, the day before. If you don't turn in corrections, you can't retake. And again, retakes have to be done by this deadline. Okay. When you turn in your corrections, you'll turn in this contract. So it says turn this contract and stapled to your corrections and original test. So turn the contract, your corrections, and the original test. Are there any questions with that? It's a basic process that'll be for the whole year. But any questions with that? So if you failed the test, I put a little stamp on your paper that said please correct and return. That means I want you to retake. But again, anyone is allowed to retake the test. Alright, so we went over homework, we did our mini quiz. What we're doing today is just more practice with solving for y. So last class we did literal equations where we had just a lot of letters and we were solving for a particular letter. And then we had the specific kind of when it was where we wanted to solve for y, where it said y equals. And we're going to be doing more practice with that today. We have a couple of examples, or a couple of things we're doing with that today. So the first thing is going to be around the room, you'll see purple pieces of paper. And on there are various equations. Okay? Yes. So what we did last class? Okay, so I will do one example of that real quick, and then we will go on to our activity practicing that. So again, what we did last time was something like this. Equal times t2. And suppose they wanted us to solve for for D1. And D1 is what we're trying to get along. So we need to get rid of everything else, and here the only thing to get rid of would be our D2. We're multiplying by D2, so the opposite of multiplying would be to divide by D2. Oops, D2. Yes. Alright, so then I have over here, capital A divided by D sub 2, this is area divided by diagonal 2, equals, those cancel, and we have D sub 1. So our answer then would be D sub 1 equals our area divided by D sub 2. So again, all we do is the exact same thing as solving equations before. Before I was trying to get x alone, now we're getting something different alone. Here I'm getting D1 alone, so I look to see, hey, this is multiplying, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. And then that's all you do. Another example would be, let's say we have, actually let's start with perimeter. It's a good one. Perimeter of a rectangle 2 times L plus 2 times W. And let's suppose they ask to get W alone. So same thing as before. Instead of solving for X, we're solving for W. So same idea, get rid of adding and subtracting first. I need to get rid of my 2L, it's a positive 2L. What's the opposite of positive 2L? Minus 2L on both sides. I cannot combine P and 2L, those are two different letters, so I just have P minus 2L. And over here I have 2W. I still need to get W by itself, I have 2 times W, what's the opposite of multiplying? Dividing, so I divide by 2. Again, I can't simplify here, so I have P minus 2L over 2 equals W. So just like we did in solving for X, we're just solving for a different letter. They tell us which letter to solve for. But you're still adding, subtracting to the opposite, it's still opposite, multiplying, dividing. It's just your answer's going to have a lot of letters in it rather than it being like X equals 3 or W equals 3. So today what we're looking at is specifically our solving Y equals. So around the room are purple pieces of paper, and the top problem gives you the numbers. We have number 1 here, and they give us our equation, negative 3x plus y equals 8. Now what they want you to do is solve for y, which means we want it to be y equals. We want to get it in the form y equals. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and to get y by itself, we have a negative 3x. What's the opposite of minus 3x? Plus 3x. We do this to both sides. Over here I just have a positive y. And I have 8 plus 3x. Now like we talked about when we went over our homework and we talked about last class, we want to write our x first, so I'm just going to rewrite this. I have positive 3x, so positive 3x, and a positive 8, so positive 8. And this is our answer. So once you'll be doing this on your own piece of paper, I have paper to give to you. Once you do this, then you're going to look to see where this answer is. So the top problem, that is the problem you're doing on your paper. And once you get your answer, then you're going to look around the room and try to find the answer of 3x plus 8. Oh, looky here. It happens to be right here. So here's the answer. So you're going to put, and it says L, so you put L in the box. And then you're going to work on the problem that's above it. Okay, so again, the top is your problem. That's what you're writing down on your paper. I'll show you your paper here. So I have problem 1. So I write down the problem I do, and I get y equals 3x plus 8. Woo. Then I find it over here, and I know that it says the answer. The answer to go to the box is L, so I put that. Alright, so now that I have my answer, I start on the next problem. The next problem is number 8. So I'm going to flip my paper over, go to number 8, do this problem, and then once I solve it, I look for that answer. So the top is the problem that you're writing down. The bottom is the answer. So this is your problem. Right, that has been numbered. And then you're looking for the answer. So this is the answer to something else. Not problem 1, but the answer to something else. And that's the letter that you put in the box. So once you find your answer, write down that letter, and then you go up to the top and work on that problem. And you work your way around the room. So there's 10 different problems. I just told you how to do one of them. You don't need to start at number 1. You can start on any problem around the room, any of those purple papers. And then I'll be coming around to answer questions, of course. You can always ask me questions. And you can work with someone if you would like, but everyone's going to be up, moving around, writing their answers on chairs. So let me pass out these papers first. And then once we finish that, we have something else to do to practice solving for y. Solving for y is a very, very, very important thing in Algebra 1. We do a whole lot more with it after this. In fact, our next unit is going to be graphing it, so we need to be able to solve for y before we can graph it. Actually, so nothing new today, just more practice from what we did last class. And you will have a mini quiz next class for first solving for y. So definitely make sure you're asking questions today in your structure. It's going to be part of the grade and the fact that it's in your binder and you have to have it completed. Is there anyone that did not get the whole, this isn't homework. Is there anyone that did not get the scavenger hunt? Okay, so yeah, you can work with partners. So guys, we just did number 1 together, right? We got 3x plus 8 is our answer. And what was that letter? L. And so we went over here and found the answer was letter L. So you can put L in that top little box. So we've already done one together. But you don't need to start off with number 1. You can go to any problem around the room and just start off with that problem, solve it, and then you're going to look for your answer. So go ahead and do this. Just a reminder, we should not be on our phones. If I see anyone on their phones, I'll just go to confiscate it. I've given enough warnings already as it is. So make sure we're working diligently. You can ask me questions. You can ask each other questions. You can choose to work with someone going around the room. Totally up to you. There are 10 different problems, but everyone's going to get up and move around. So then start working, and I'll come around and answer questions as needed.
What do we put in this box?
The answer. So we found over there the answer, and it said L. So we put L in the box.
You don't put the letter there?
That's the letter.
You put the letter there?
Yeah.
So what was the letter to the one?
L. All right. Let me bring it back. All right. So again, what we're trying to do is get y by itself, which means we need to get rid of those x's and get rid of those numbers. So we already did number 1 together. So here they've written out the problem and then they wrote out the answer for it. Do we have questions on 1 or 2 of how to do it, how to go about it? I love answering questions. It's one of my favorite things as a teacher. So if you have a question, please ask it so I can answer it. I didn't even go over number 4 yet. 1 and 2. You couldn't even see the answer for number 4. Questions on 1 or 2. Those ones weren't too bad. We only had to move the x. Let's take a look at 3 and 4. 3 is still not too bad. 4 are a little more complicated. Do we have questions on here? For number 4, this is a pretty common type of problem. You'll probably have one like this on your quiz, probably have one like this on your test. So let me just make sure we all know how to do it. So I want to see everyone's eyes up front so I know we're all paying attention. And I love seeing your beautiful faces. Andrew, I like seeing your face too. I like seeing your face. Anthony, you're making me take away your calculator as well? Focus.
All at it.
All right. So for a problem like number 4, we have to get y completely alone. So I need to get rid of my 6x. I have a positive 6x. What's the opposite? Okay, so I do minus 6x, minus 6x. So over here, I just have 3y left over. I can't combine these. This is a 12, this is an x. They're not the same term, so I can't combine them together. I like to write my x's first, so it's x has a negative 6, negative 6x, and it's a minus 12. And then I have 3 times y. What's the opposite of multiplying? Dividing. Now what we have to be careful with here, so I have just y, but we have to divide everything on top by this. So negative 6x divided by 3. Negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. We still have that x. And negative 12 divided by positive 3 is negative 4. So that's our answer there. So just make sure you are dividing everything on top. 6x divided by 3 and 12. Right. Let's go take a look at 5 and 6. I think it's sleep at 7 and 8 there. Maybe? Zoom out a little bit. Let's take a look at those 4. Alright, what questions do we have on 5, 6, 7, and 8?
When you have a negative next to the y, you still got to divide that, right?
Yeah, so number 7 here, we have a negative y. 2 is positive, y is negative. So I subtract my 2. Opposite of positive 2 is negative 2. So I still have negative y. To get rid of that negative, it's the same thing as saying negative 1 times y. So I want to do divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1. That gives me positive y. And again, 8 divided by negative 1 is negative 8. Negative 2 divided by negative 1 is positive 2. So you do have to get rid of that stuff. Let's take a look at number 8. Number 8, you threw a fraction in here. And you're going to get fractions. We're in high school. We do have fractions. They are actual numbers that exist in the real world. So we have 1/2 y minus 7 equals 3x. Again, I need to get y by itself. So I'm going to first get rid of anything else. Opposite of negative 7 is plus 7. Plus 7. I have 1/2 y. I can't combine 3x and 7. One has an x, one does not. They're not the same term. 3 cookies, 7 numbers. They don't go together. So I have 3x, positive, and positive 7. And now this is the tricky thing here. We have 1/2 times y. We said we could divide by 1/2, but that looks pretty ugly on our calculator. So the easier thing to do... No, it's weird erasing when I'm on this type of Alright. The easier thing to do is to instead multiply by this flipped upside down. 2 over 1. And we're here, 2 over 1. So just cancel. What's 2 divided by 1 give us? What is 2 over 1? It's just 2. So I'm really just multiplying by 2. 2 times 1/2, if you put that in your calculator, that's 1y. So that's how we get just the y. And then again, we can distribute over here. 3 times 2 over 1 gives us 6x. And then 7 times 2 over 1 gives us positive 1. If you prefer to divide by that fraction on your calculator, that's perfectly fine. You get the same answer. If you divide by your fraction.
So you would do 3 divided by 1/2, right?
Right. So let me show you with doing it with the fraction. I would say divide by 1/2, divided by 1/2. So on your calculator, what you're doing is 3 divided by 1/2, or 3 divided by parentheses 1/2. Okay, and then same thing. 7 divided by 1/2, or 7 divided by parentheses 1/2. So you'll still get the same answer, it just looks a little more complicated. Just to refresh our memories, how do we do this nice vertical fraction bar in our calculators? Alpha y equals, very good, Kelly. Alpha y equals lets us do that beautiful fraction bar, and that probably makes it the easiest way for you to type it in. You don't have to use that, you can use the parentheses, but if you don't use that vertical fraction bar, you have to put parentheses around it. So again, alpha y equals, and enter, that's what gives you that vertical fraction.
How do you?
So when you have that fraction within the fraction, so let's say look at that, we had, let's say 7 divided by 1/2. Oops, I have my calculator. So I have 7 on top, and then I have to do another fraction inside there. Oops, right side is for it. 1 divided by 2. Okay, so that it gets a little complicated that way, or you can say 7 divided by, and then alpha y equals 1.
How can we download that? Is there any way we can like do that on our computer also?
So on your computer,
Because when we're home, it's hard to do those fractions.
so let's pause for a moment. Okay, so again, what we did is we clicked test nav on our laptop. It brings up this screen. You don't actually need to sign in. Just hit SOL practice items. Now, see it says Desmos Virginia Calculator. So Desmos is an online calculator that allows you to do calculations, and you get to use this for the SOL. Go ahead and put that away. Thank you. So you actually, on the SOL, you can use the Desmos calculator. But when you're at home, the Desmos calculator, the Desmos calculator is a great tool to use, particularly when you don't have a calculator at home. Desmos is nice for the fractions. So if you want to do practice stuff, you can, but we'll do that later. So Desmos calculator and the Virginia graphing calculator. Bring up your calculator.
No, you have to.
Okay. So on our toolbar up here, you can click the calculator. And so this is actually your Desmos calculator. So we can type in 1 divided by 2. Notice that when I hit that dividing by, it made it into a fraction.
Oh, okay.
And so it makes it a little nicer and easier to work with. And let's say you're not using your laptop. Let's just say that you're at home and you want to use Desmos. So you can go ahead and just Google search Desmos graphing
We're
calculator.
available on the App Store. On Google Play.
Is it? Probably. So again, Desmos graphing calculator.
In Google.
And again, similar thing. So this is something crazy I've graphed. You can ignore that. Okay. So again, when you type, I just hit my dividing sign, and it automatically put it into a fraction. Okay. So that's something that you can use at home if the calculator on your phone doesn't do fractions very nicely. Again, Desmos, D-E-S-M-O-S, Desmos. And it's the graphing calculator. It makes the fractions a lot nicer for you. Okay, so that's definitely good with fractions. And so it's just like you do in a calculator. Let's say I wanted to do 1/2. Now see, what you do have to be careful with is let's say we want 1/2 divided by 5. Notice my 1/2 is on top here, so you just want to make sure that it matches what you have on your paper. Because if I was down here, let's say I did 1/2 divided by 5. Notice if my cursor is still at the 2 and I hit divided by, then it didn't do 1/2, it did 1 divided by 2/5. So just make sure that you go outside of it to say 1/2 divided by 5. So again, Desmos is a great tool to use either on your computer, You can go through TestNav. That's what you'll see on the Virginia SOL. The one that they have online is very similar, but there's some things that they changed for the Virginia SOL. So I would recommend using the one on your laptop, but you can use this on your phone. It's perfectly fine. Of course, you can just use your normal phone calculator for like -2 times 10, but if you're doing fractions, it might be easier to use Desmos.
You're gonna need the decimals. You're gonna get a decimal on an iPhone calculator.
Yeah, and so if you actually hit enter again once it does a decimal, hit enter again and it'll convert it to a fraction for you. Or at least on my calculator it does, but I don't have an iPhone. But if I hit enter again, it turns it into a fraction, so try it on yours. But Desmos might just be easier to use. Do like 1 divided by 3. I should say 0.3 repeating, and then hit enter again.
Nah, press
Doesn't, not as good as mine. Okay, Desmos. Alright, my phone was a lot cheaper, so. I don't have money for an iPhone. Okay, do we have questions with our Desmos? Okay. So again, Desmos you're welcome to use at home when you don't have a calculator, or you don't like the calculator on your phone. So those are definitely options to use. And we'll, as we get closer to the SOL, we'll talk more about Desmos and using that for the SOL. But for right now, you can just use it for calculations. All right, any questions with that? Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at...
You got homework?
Mhm.
Yes. I promise you, I'll bring my fifth.
all of your...
Yeah. Yes, I will. I will bring it. Right out. I'm also there.
No, you want to make her mad.
Thank
Yeah, we're still doing stuff. I'll let you know in fact. All right, so everyone should have in front of them worksheet 19. Worksheet 19. Is there anyone that did not get worksheet 19? All right. I want everyone to take a look at number 15. Number 15. This is worksheet 19. And we're taking a look at number 15.
So we've never done this.
Yes, we have.
We're distributing them.
We are going to distribute.
Oh, then it's gonna lead us to an equation where we can try to.
Solve for what? So it's been a couple of days since we've done inequalities. Remember, it's the same thing we did before with our equations. Same thing we did before. I'm going to put this under your desk. I'm not sure why it's. Alright. So the same thing as we did with the equations, we need to get y by itself. Okay, so I want to go ahead and do this one together. Now, I need to take care of my distributing here. So I'm going to distribute. So we can go and write this down. -4 times x is -4x. -4 times -2 is a positive 8y. And so it's greater than or equal to 24. Okay.
Now do we do the same steps?
Now we're just doing the same steps. It's just like this equation. What's the only thing different with inequalities instead of equations?
Sign.
The sign thing. If I have to multiply or divide by negative, what do we do? We flip the sign. Okay, so we need to get rid of our x. Opposite of -4x is positive 4x. So I have 8y
divided by 8.
We have greater than or equal to. We can't combine these together just like before we couldn't combine them together. Write your x first. So positive 4x, positive 4x. Okay, 24 is positive, so it's positive 20. Okay. And just like before, I have 8 times y. How do I get rid of the 8? Divide by 8. So I have y. Do I need to flip my sign here? No, we divide by a positive 8, so we leave the sign alone. And then 4 divided by 8 gives us 1/2. So our x. And positive 24 divided by 8 is positive 3.
Okay.
And that's our answer. Okay, so same thing as we did with equations. Just have to be careful. We have a negative that we divide by. Alright, so your homework is this worksheet 19. We just put it together. You're welcome. Go ahead and return your calculators and erase your name from the board. And again, if you plan on retaking, come see me and I'll give you the retake contract. So you have that to remind you what you need to do for corrections.